Hey there, positivity seekers. Welcome to another episode of Incurable Positivity, the podcast where we explore practical ways to shift your thoughts from negative to positive.
I'm April Sobral, and with me is the incredible Angie Costa. Together, we co-authored the award-winning book, Incurable Positivity. And we're here to bring those pages to life in this uplifting podcast.
Absolutely, April. Our mission is simple: to help you think and feel better. Life throws challenges our way, but it's how we respond that makes all the difference. Today, we've got some tactical tips to share with you that can truly transform your mindset.
For more positivity, head to www.incurablepositivity.com. Stay positive, stay inspired. This is Incurable Positivity. Okay, I am super excited to record the first Incurable Positivity podcast of 2025. I can't believe it. It's already February. Yeah.
Busy 2025 already, haven't we? We've had a lot done. It's been great.
It's been great. It's been ups and downs, but it's been great. It's all great. Just I listen to India Irie every day because, I got to see her in December. And one of the songs that she sang was, "Thank you for the experiences of joy, pain, happiness, all of it," because it just reminds us that we're alive. So it just grounds me in that every day.
Yeah, that's a great exercise to be thankful for it all. One of the books in the series that I did before I met you was called The Gift of Suffering. It was a reminder that even when we suffer, it's a blessing because it means we are still alive. We're still engaged. We're still able to make change in the world and in our own lives. So,
yeah, I love that. I went to a Buddhist meditation last night, and it's all about that, right? Suffering, and then you reach nirvana. And I was like, no, we're not going to suffer every day, all day. We're going to embrace it as a gift, and accept that. Yeah. So there's just so much going on in the world right now. I think it's been a really interesting time, specifically, where we live, in the United States, and there's just so many contrasting views. And I think one of the things that I really love about Incurable Positivity and having that mindset is you kind of remove your judgment and you step into joy and positivity and don't hold judgment, because that's just not the way that we're going to solve world problems. That's why they start, right?
Well, that's why I always say, April, that everybody needs to read Incurable Positivity, particularly world leaders. Because if world leaders approached the challenges they face and all the choices they have to make from that place of positivity, the trickle-down effect would be immeasurable.
Super good. So what are we going to talk about on our first podcast of 2025? We're certainly not going to talk politics.
Absolutely not. No. But, you've been talking about and training on how so many people make New Year's resolutions in December or early January. And by this time, by February, they have already abandoned those dreams and desires. They've gotten sidelined or off track. And I think it would be pretty awesome to share a little bit of that training with our Incurable Positivity family, so that if anybody did happen to get off track or doesn't want to get off track, we can maybe help them out a bit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, and you're right, Angie. It's actually, I was doing some research over the weekend because I was hosting a call on my community, and the top reasons, there's 10 top reasons actually why people drop off, and there's probably more, but this is the top 10 under a study. I can't remember the study. I will probably put it in the show notes if you want to read it, but it says 70% of people fall off their New Year's resolutions by February 1st. And they're typically related to a combination of unrealistic expectations, right? Lack of consistency and insufficient planning. And there's 10 key reasons. So I think this would be a really good topic to kind of dive in. And as we go through each of them, I'd love it if you can shed any light or any personal experiences that you've had, and we can just talk about them, and then how we overcome them, to stay on track, because that's a big, hefty number. 70% of people fall off.
It is. It's a massive number, especially when you consider that by 30 days from now, it'll be in the 90s.
Right.
90% of people. And so, like, we're all just trying to hang on to whatever that feeling was, that vibe, that positivity, that, excitement we had at the end of the year. And for some reason, things happen that cause us to lose it. And I think it's really good to talk about it, because even if you have fallen off, that there is no reason why you can't hit the reset button today and start again.
Oh yeah, 100%. We say that all the time, right? With the 3 R's, like release, reach, and reframe, and take the Angie pause and like literally just stop and have a moment and, reset. It's a new day. That's the good thing. And I think that mental game of rewiring your brain so that you're not beating yourself up on it, can help. And so building these new habits around thoughts are really, really important. So yeah, I think we'll dive in to a couple of them. Number one, the first one actually is unrealistic goals. So many people set overly ambitious resolutions that are difficult to sustain in the long term. And an example of that is like aiming for extreme changes in lifestyle or trying to achieve too much too quickly can lead to burnout. Now, I've experienced this in my life, but I'd love to, how have you ever experienced this in your life? Like setting yourself unrealistic goals?
Yeah, and in essence, you're setting yourself up for failure because of all the years past where you didn't accomplish a goal you set for yourself, and you try to pile on from last year, pile on to this year, and maybe many years past. That's why a lot of people are trying to lose 100 pounds in a year. Well, it's because you didn't lose the 50 last year or the 30 the year before. And really, it doesn't show yourself the grace and mercy that you need to settle into a routine, to do all the things you need to do. I have certainly done this with weight loss because that has been my biggest challenge. And it's just like every year I got heavier and heavier and heavier. And so when January came along, I had to set this gigantic goal that was 10 pounds more than the year before because I hadn't done what I thought I could do in the year prior. So I am a witness that setting unrealistic expectations is really, it's a self-sabotage technique, and it really does lead to failure most of the time.
Yeah, and I'm really guilty of unrealistic expectations because I think I'm a master manifester, which in some cases I am. And I want to get into that a little bit because my unrealistic goals that I've experienced is like how much I can get done in a week and how much I can get done in a month. Especially being an entrepreneur and like saying yes to a lot of things, to people that want to do things with me. And I can really say that I experienced this last year, particularly just taking on a lot, giving myself unrealistic goals of like, I don't know how many podcasts I wanted to be on or how many people to partner with, or just like my business goals, like how many clients and how much revenue do you want to drive? Because like how high is high? Like you want to do as much as you can, right? Like as an entrepreneur, you want to drive that revenue and like have sales. But if I go back to my life running stores, when I did that, we had realistic targets. We had goals every year where we would grow 5%, 7%, 10% year on year. They weren't like 250% increases. And I think that caused me to have some burnout because I wasn't seeing the success that I wanted. And so this year, going into this year, what I learned is really to take a step back and like really take time and put up my objectives and my key results that I want to achieve by the first quarter. And then make sure that the actions are lining up with that. So that means like anything else comes around that doesn't line up with that, I'm going to have to say no. Whereas before it was just like free for all. It was like, yeah, I just want to make $1 million business and I want to have like, I'll do anything because I just need to sell more workshops or like whatever it is, train more leaders. And yes, we have 1 million leaders as our North Star to train, but that's not going to happen in a year. I mean, it could. It could through online courses and things like that. But let's be realistic, right? Because if we surpass the goal, great. And that's a win for everybody. So I think that's where it shows up for me. It shows up really in that area. And what can happen in that is I can literally act from a survival mechanism, which is more of a masculine do. And when I step into that, I've really recognized over the holidays, because I took, some time off, I was able to, I get burnt out, and then I get burnt out and maybe a bit resentful. And I go, is this what I really want to do?
Sure. Yeah. And I think we've done great this year as business partners in terms of setting goals. We've said no to quite a bit. If you think back, we said no to quite a bit. And I think that people who are extremely ambitious, you're the go-getter, you're the one who gets things done, you do tend to wear the cape and you think, I can get this all done, because you have gotten miraculous things done in the past. But for real, true growth, long-term, you need to build. And that means setting solid foundations and taking your time as you add to that foundation. I think we've done a great job of that this year. And I hope everybody out there is hearing this, because if you want to achieve a goal and you break that goal into more manageable milestones, you don't have to double up next year. You will have already laid a very, very firm foundation for yourself, so that next year when you set your goal, it'll be from the vantage point of having already achieved this year's goal. And like you said, April, that's a motivator versus what we've been doing, which is piling on so much on our backs that it was a demotivator.
Yeah. How do you feel about people that say that you shouldn't set goals? Because there's a lot of that floating around out there too. Like, I've heard thought leaders talk about that in the last year, like, don't set goals. You shouldn't set goals. What's your thought process on that?
Yeah, it's so hilarious to me. And I don't want to disparage anyone who has said that. I'm sure they have a reason for saying that. But I think what happens I talked to you about this the other day, April. We were on a training together, and I said, this is stuff you have been talking about for a decade. People are acting like it's new. It's not new. It's just new to you, to the person who's hearing it for the first time. And I think sometimes these concepts, they're so timeless and they're so powerful that people think, I got to make up something new. Let me come up with some new thing. All right, here's the new thing. Don't set goals and don't visualize. And it's like, wow, we've already tried not setting goals and not visualizing. We've done that. And that's why
it doesn't work.
Long ago, right? So I think that I personally can't imagine not setting goals for my life. Even if they weren't business goals, I would set personal goals. I would set charity goals. I would set friendship goals. You always want to challenge yourself to do more, be more, give more, have more.
Yeah, agreed. And so, I think setting unrealistic goals is probably, number one reason is why people fall off. So what your call to action on this right now is to not be one of those 70% of people, Angie, right? To fall off, and look at your goals and see if they're grounded in reality of where you are. So look back at what you've set. And that's what I'm doing this week. I'm really looking back at what I set for this year and saying to myself, okay, where did I get these goals from? What are they grounded in? And like, let me face reality. Let me see where I can grow and what the opportunities are to reach those goals. And certainly I'll set myself a stretch goal, right? Like, like one of my goals was always to live like by a beach. Now, I kept thinking for a long time I had to move to a tropical island somewhere. And I didn't. I just needed to move to Miami. I was
Miami is a tropical island.
I know. Well, it's funny because I was having this conversation with a friend yesterday. He said, every time I see your pictures online, you inspire me because I want to live a beach lifestyle. And I keep thinking it has to be somewhere like the Mauritius or Bali or somewhere that's just so unattainable when he lives in New York, right? And he says, and actually, you're living a beach lifestyle. I said, yeah, you can do it in Miami. It's just 3 hours south. Like, you do not need to go somewhere. So I think sometimes our desires to achieve more or do more or like think so big can derail us. And that's all I'm saying. And so I think you can have these big goals, but make them realistic. And maybe my next home from here will be a tropical island, but this is the stepping stone also. And it was funny because this morning when I was on the beach crew that we meet every day said, why do you want to leave Miami? Everybody that comes here is happy. They're all on vacation. They're here to have a good time. They're bringing all their good energy. And I was like, that's so true, you know? So I really appreciate that about here. But yeah, he just said that to me yesterday. So I said, that's a good reminder. Thank you that I am living my dream. And sometimes our desires will get out ahead of us and make us have these unrealistic goals, which is why then we don't accomplish them, you know?
Yeah, and I want to say two things. Well, I want to say one thing and ask you a question. So I think back to when I first watched The Secret. No matter what you people think or feel about The Secret, if you love it or hate it, doesn't matter. The point is that one of the speakers put a picture of his dream house on a dream board and hung it up on his wall. And years later, he was packing to move. And after he moved, he was unpacking on the other side. And this picture was all, sort of like folded up and put in the bottom of a box. He pulled it out and he was literally living in the same house that he had put on his dream board years earlier. And obviously that says a whole lot about visualization and manifestation, but it also says something about how we live, where we don't live in a place of consistent gratitude. Because how is it that he didn't stop to notice that he had already achieved his goal? And I think that happens to us, that we don't know, like, this, where we live. This is wonderful. I think back often to the struggles we went through and the, deep meditations we did to be able to manifest both of us being in Florida. I mean, that's amazing. It's amazing to me that I'm sitting here right now. And I think it's so important to stop and say, thank you. Here I am. I've done it, and be grateful for that moment. But I do want to be sensitive to people who are still on their path, but the goal that they set for January, they didn't hit it. They didn't make it. What would you say to people?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I loved that part of The Secret as well. I totally remember that. So yeah, visualization is key. But what I would say to those people that are sitting here listening to this and going, I think I could be one of those 70% and haven't hit it, is I would look back at your month, like look at your calendar, look at your emails, look at your photos in our phone. Our phone is such a great timestamp now for what we've actually done, where we've been, and find the wins, find the celebrations. There's got to be something in there where you actually accomplished something or achieved something or had an experience that maybe you didn't have a goal wrapped around. Key example for me was last year when we did the summit with Microsoft, the Retail Connect Summit. That was not on my goal plan for the year. It was not anywhere on the list. So I could look at that month and say, I didn't accomplish my goals, but there's something even bigger that I did accomplish. And so maybe some things got shifted around and out of the way, but I'm not going to be hard on myself. I'm going to actually celebrate the wins. And that's what we did in the year planning tool, right? That year planning tool takes you back and says, like, look at the things you've accomplished. When you actually look at it and write that down, you get into this place of gratitude. It could be, I spent a really wonderful evening with friends, with family, with my kids. I had an amazing conversation with my son. And one of my goals was to build stronger relationships this year. Whatever it is that you can kind of bring into that moment of what you have accomplished by using the tools that we have to physically look at it, I think that can ground you as well in a place of gratitude.
That is so good. I love that. And you're right. There are things you didn't even plan for that happened. And that's, if you had known, you would have had it on your goal sheet, but you didn't know. Yeah. So yeah, you can certainly celebrate that. And then use that as a springboard to move on to next month. That's really good. I love it.
And even if, like, you had, like, for me, for an example, right, I would say I had a sales goal by January. Maybe I didn't hit it, right? However, the calls that I got and the conversations that I had and the requests I had from people, I was like, wow, that's a celebration. Just the fact that somebody asked me if I would do this, I'm going to celebrate that, because that's not something I would have ever thought of. Right. So yeah, so many ways to celebrate.
That's funny. I just bid for a job for Hooters to write their commemorative 40th year anniversary. And I thought, wow, even if they turn me down, I'm getting turned down by major corporations now. That's something to celebrate.
And you got it, right?
We'll see.
Yet.
Okay. We're still in the process. We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah,
we're gonna put some IP on that.
It's a big one. It'll be the biggest one we've had so far. But those are the kinds of things that April was talking about. Those things that fall into your lap that just the God brought them to you, or even the universe. It brought those things to you just to let you know you're still in the game. You're still in the game.
Yeah. All right. I think this is going to be like a 2-part series, maybe a 3-part series, because there's a lot.
3-part series.
Yeah. There's a lot here. So the next one, so that's the first one, unrealistic goals. So really check in with yourself, look at your goals. How realistic are they? I always think when you're setting goals, think 30 days from now, where would I want to be? There's an exercise I do. It's called the History of Your Future with coaching clients. And it's always getting them, not asking, where do you want to be? It's what have you accomplished? It's a very different question of where do you want to be versus what have I accomplished? Because you're putting yourself forwards to look back. And then when you do that, you can really see, so this is what I've accomplished in 30 days from now. So March 2nd. Okay, these are the actions I would need to take to get there. And how realistic are they? Like, are they too big or are they too small? That would be my advice. So number two reason, the second reason is lack of I can never say this word. You might want to say it. Lack of specificity.
Specificity. Lack of specificity.
Yeah. So like resolutions that are vague, right? Like get healthier or save money. This can lack a clear path for action. People struggle when they don't break their resolutions down into specific actionable steps. And that's as easy as, like, if you have a goal like saving money, like how much are you saving every week? That's making it more specific. Getting healthier could be drinking, so many gallons of water a day. That can just make it real specific, because if you're not specific, you're not going to accomplish them. That's the second one.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about, we did a project, or I should say an exercise, April and I, called the Flywheel. It's in our book, Incurable Positivity, the workbook. So I strongly recommend it. I'm not a terribly emotional person, but I will tell you that this Flywheel project got deep down to the places that really needed to be massaged a bit. And one of the things that I had to do in that exercise is talk about what I can control versus what I cannot. And there's so many things that we can't control, but the things we can are the places where we need to challenge ourselves. So, saying I want to lose weight is not the right statement necessarily. Not that there's a wrong statement, but it's not as refined as it could be, and it's not as effective as it could be. Even saying I want to lose 30 pounds or 40 pounds, that still feels outside of your control. You don't know what your health is going to be like. You don't know, what, your body clock and all the things that go on that cause us to gain weight. But here's the thing you can say, and this is what I said in this Flywheel exercise. What I can control is how many times I go to the gym. That I can control. It doesn't matter what else is going on in the world. I can control whether or not I go to the gym. And so I made that promise to myself and that commitment to myself. And I saw a huge difference in my weight journey for the first time in probably, it's easily 10 years. I've lost more weight in the last 60 days or 90 days. Has it been, April? Something like that.
Yeah.
Than I've lost in the last 10 years.
Wow. I love that, Angie, how you totally turned it into a positive. I can control how many times I'm going to go to the gym, because then what you're doing is you're reframing your thought process, your beliefs, and literally going after a positive thought, which makes it just less resistance. Because our brain, right? Because our brain doesn't always hear "I don't." It doesn't hear the negative or the positive. It just hears the statement. So when you keep saying things that are counteractive to what you actually want to do in a negative phrase, then it just hears you reinforcing what you're actually doing. So that is genius. So you basically said to yourself, how did you get to that? Because I know a lot of people struggle with like that process. Like you flipped it around. A lot of people, I can imagine, saying to themselves, listening to this, would be like, oh wow, yeah, like I've said my goal is to lose 50 pounds. But how did you work through that to flip it to that?
Well, I always joke about April on my shoulder. I get to talk to you every day, and this is stuff you've been studying for years and years and years. And so I am always paying attention. And I heard you talk about this. I heard you talk about this with regard to leaders and sales calls. And I thought, you can say, I want to make 6 figures this year. But that your brain immediately starts to calculate all of the obstacles to that goal. It just does it automatically, unless you're really, really well trained at controlling your thoughts. Yeah. Your thoughts are going to go wild, and it immediately tell you all the things that won't work because they didn't work the last time you said you were going to make 6 figures in a year. And so constantly talking to yourself that way might be less effective than saying, these are the activities I'm going to do. And you said this in December, and I caught it. You said, these are the activities that I'm going to do, because if you want a certain result, you do the activities that are connected to that result. And I thought, wow, this is really the key. The key is do the actions. No matter what else happens, do the actions, and that you can commit to, and your brain can't resist you. Your brain can't resist that. I'm going to the gym every day at 11 o'clock. Done. It's in my calendar. I'm going. Finished. No resistance. Yeah. I think that was the key.
Yeah, I love that. I think that was, for me, like looking about changing behaviors versus changing a belief. I had this moment where I was like, hold on a second. I'm really struggling to shift this belief because maybe it's really deeply rooted. But if I just jump into the behavior of what you just did and said, and did something differently and took an action, which is step 1, be committed to doing something and shifting, then something will change. And it definitely works 100%. Yeah.
If you guys want April on your shoulder, she's got a nap coming out. I'm waiting with bated breath. I got to test it in the beta phase, and I'm telling you, it is amazing. So if you're a leader, if you're a business owner, anyone out there, you will literally be able to ask April anything and get instant answers to something that's plaguing you. I cannot wait. So you guys need to make sure you're connected to us at aprilsobral.com.
Oh, thanks, Angie. Yeah, and join the community for free, because you can get access to me and Angie. Angie's in that community as well. And you can find that on Instagram, but I will put it in the show notes. Okay, number 3. I feel like we're going to do 3 parts. We're going to get this 10. So we're going to get to like maybe 3 or 4 today, right? But 3. So loss of motivation. This is the 3rd top reason why 70% of people fall off their New Year's resolutions. So at the start of the year, you talked about it earlier, Angie. You said about like people are really motivated, feel really good when they come into the year. And then, however, as the initial excitement wears off, maintaining motivation becomes more challenging without the right support and accountability. I think for me, key is support and accountability here. Huge.
Yeah, I agree. The support, I think most people want support, but we don't always enjoy accountability, because accountability means that you have to actually face another human being and tell them where you are and what's happened. So it's really important to get that accountability person right and make sure that someone who's going to always support and encourage you, because accountability is not, we're not drill sergeants for each other. We don't beat each other over the head when we don't achieve. What a true accountability person does well is they ask you to evaluate what went wrong and let's put some action steps in place to protect you moving forward. I think that's really what accountability is. And a lot of people think it's like, oh, I have to call you and tell you I didn't work out today. No, that's not how it goes.
No, that's not helpful at all.
Because in truth, like the beauty of accountability is just the fact that it's scheduled and going to happen will motivate you to get moving. If you're having a particularly rough day and you're like, whoa, I'm going to be meeting with April tomorrow. Oh, I need to get myself together. Yeah. And sometimes it'll light a fire under you. But yeah, these are the little elements. Like if you look at any goal that you've set, you need to look at each one of these elements individually. If you haven't reached your goal in past years, and ask yourself, where have I not committed to a step? Because they're all part of the process. They're critical parts of the process. You can't leave any of them out. So even if you don't necessarily believe you need the support, or you don't really think you need the accountability, that could be the difference between you reaching your goal this year or, being here again, January 2026, saying, I got to get this done.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Huge accountability. And I think that's why I really wanted to start the community this year. Like I've got grown followers and that's great, but I feel like sometimes now working alone and not being part of a community, because prior to this, I've been in other communities, right? Whether that be Brendan Burchard's community, whether that be in John Maxwell's community or the Mind Valley community, I've been in them. And I recognize that when I'm not in one with a group of people, as an entrepreneur, it can become very lonely. And you can feel not motivated to get up when you're, don't have somebody asking you to do something. Maybe people just become empty nesters and their kids move out and they're not needed as much as they want. They can go through this whole change. So I think, having that community and having that support and people that can just cheer you on. And when you're having a less motivating moment, I do think that there is a difference between being inspired and being motivated. I think inspired comes intrinsically, and I think we get that from reading, from spirit source, whatever you want to call it. But I think motivation is external to us, and it can keep us. People can keep us motivated. Accountability can keep us motivated. And I think with accountability, it's really about having people in your corner, like you said, Angie, about like, not that you have to report in that something's not done, but I have people, I have an accountability partner who I met in New York. He's a great friend of mine. And he literally sends me a text message in the morning and he'd be like, I believe in you. I know you can do it. Go after the day. And I'm like, and he sends it to me every day. And then he's like, okay, what are you going to start, stop, continue every day? Right. He's like my accountability in the start, stop, continues. And we do it for each other on a group chat. And it's really kind of cool. So I think there's so many ways to chop up accountability, but at the end of the day, if you have a touch point with somebody, I think that's helpful. How do you hold yourself accountable? That's an interesting question. How do you hold yourself accountable? How do you hold yourself accountable?
I have taken to putting my goals and plans in written form visually, like all around me. So there was a time when I had sort of reverted to sort of digital tools, using my computer and things like that. But I think there's something about the hand-eye brain connection when you actually sit down and write out your schedule, write out your goal for the day. I'm doing this daily. So I have my 5-year plan. I have my plan for 2025, and then I have my plan for the month. And now I have my plan per day based on those. And all of them are around me. I'm surrounded by them, so that it would be impossible for me to have several days go by where I'm not thinking about it, because it's in my space. It's everywhere I go. And I actually learned that a long time ago from my daughter, who is she is a master manifester. I have never seen anybody do what she's been able to do. And I may have told this story before. She wanted to go to Europe and she wanted to visit 8 countries. and she had all of those countries on her screensaver. And every single time she opened her computer, she stopped and she looked at her countries. And then out of nowhere, a mechanic actually told me about a trip that his daughter was taking to 7 countries. And it was 7 of the 8 my daughter wanted to go on. And she manifested the money, everything she needed to be able to go on this trip, super expensive European tour. The crazy thing about it is when she got over there, she was in Germany, and the last place on her little list was Switzerland, but Switzerland was not part of the tour. The tour guide said, hey guys, we have a few extra hours. How would y'all like to go to Switzerland? It was the craziest thing ever. She manifested a location, a destination that wasn't even on the tour. So I think we can do so many things digitally, but we can't forget that, we're 4-dimensional beings.
Yeah.
We live in time and space, and sometimes we need that little extra tactile touch. So that's what's helped me this year.
That's amazing. I mean, I would say one of my goals at the beginning of this year, which was quite specific, was to fast once a week for the next 4 weeks. It was a specific goal. It's a realistic goal. I've fasted before. I used to do it actually all the time, and I was in the best shape and the best mental brain shape of my life when I was doing it about 4 or 5 years ago. And I just dropped off, and I literally lost the motivation to do it. I just didn't accomplish that in January. I'm going to be really transparent right now and offer that up. Like, I'm really honest. I just had lost the motivation to do it. And so one of the motivations or self-accountability that I said to myself was, I get to feel better. I literally did what you did about working out. I get to feel better. I get to step into what I know I've already been able to do. And I'm going to give my body a rest from working for me. So I basically reframed it, as opposed to, because all of January was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Oh, I don't want to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I don't want to do it. That mental ping pong that we all have with things that we want to achieve. And I really said, okay, I'm going to use all my skills and practices that I know to be true with Incurable Positivity, and I'm going to release that, reach for a new one, and reframe it. And today I am at, let's say 32 hours of fasting for the last 32 hours. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was literally like a conversation I had with Amber, my daughter, yesterday. She called me in the morning and she said, I feel like God was speaking to me through her. That always happens with people. She's like, Mom, I haven't fasted for so long, and I've done it for the last 3 days, and I feel so good. And this is all the benefits that I'm feeling from it. I have to go back to the basics. And I was like, okay, that was my accountability right there, to like step into it, get more motivated, and just take action on it. And so I did, and I feel so good today. I'm like, I could actually go for another day, I think. So last month I didn't do 1 day of fasting. I think February starting off with 2 full 24-hour days of fasting, so pretty excited about it. Tomorrow I'm probably going to be bouncing off the walls, calling you, texting me like, woohoo, I'm feeling so good, because I want to detox all that sugar out of my body that just is naturally in food. So that's what I'm working on, and I think that will help overall with motivation anyway, just in general.
Yeah, fasting's amazing. I remember years and years ago, before I started having kids, I had a fasting regimen, and boy, it makes your brain, it's like your brain is on steroids. It's like you just go to another level. It's almost like meditation. It just takes you to a different place. And listening to you talk about that is really making me hungry for fasting.
Hungry for fasting. Yeah, I'm excited about how I'm going to feel tomorrow, and then I'm going to be able to build on this habit. So, step by step next week. It's amazing. Good. Yeah. All right, we're coming up to almost 40 minutes. So we've got one last one that we'll talk about today. And then we'll do a part 2 for this, so that, we'll drop another one this month so that you can all get access to the next 5 to 10. But the next one, I think, is what we were just really talking about, is Number 4 on the list is failure to build habits. So resolutions often focus on short-term goals rather than developing long-term habits. And so without consistent daily actions, it's easy to slip back into old routines. And I think this is a good one to end on today, actually, because I think incurable positivity in the flywheel that you just talked about, Angie, literally is the answer to all of these bad habits, because it starts with your subconscious and your limiting beliefs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a computer term called GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. And unfortunately, things have happened in our lives in our past, most of which we couldn't control. Most of it happened when we were children and other people were in charge of our lives. And we don't blame or shame our parents. That's not the vibe we go for here, because we're adults now, we take responsibility. But we do need to acknowledge that whatever happened in the past has shaped the way that we process things, the lens through which we look at things is a result of what happened in our past. And so if you can reshape the lens, you can see the world differently, engage with the world differently, engage with your goals differently, and not have this constant cycle going on. It's funny because my daughter and I were talking about this in the car. Someone did something as we were driving that was really dangerous. And we thought, okay, rather than be annoyed at this person, let's think about 2 reasons why they just did what they did. And a really different way to look at it. I'm like, maybe he just got an emergency. He did a weird U-turn from like one side of the road all the way to the other, like it was an emergency. And we thought, well, maybe he got an emergency call. Somebody's sick or someone's being rushed to the hospital or his wife's gone into labor. Still doesn't make the driving any better. But the way we think about it, there's no road rage when someone is trying to rush home because, their baby fell and broke a leg or something horrible happened. Yeah. So you can look at the world a lot of ways. That's what incurable positivity is all about. It's how you see yourself, how you see the world, how you impact the world, and how you allow the world to impact you.
Love that. And the habits really start in the mind. I really truly believe that sometimes like forming a new habit pattern. So like even on the call on Saturday, we were talking about habits and mentors of mine that have taught me how they rewired their habits through their thought patterns. And one of them is like every time they drank a glass of water, they would have a positive thought that they would think about to replace and counterbalance the negative one that is actually causing them to have a habit that's not positive for them for the outcomes that they want. So we have these things that we do in our life, whether that be make a call, text message, drink some water, go for a walk, walk into a door, walk through a door, like walk through a doorway. And so I think there's these mini moments. I think this was in Atomic Habits. I read that book last year as well. And that was one of the biggest things I took away from it as well. But it confirmed what my mentors have said to me in the past is, listen, you've got all these little daily things you do anyway. So just build in new thoughts around those daily activities as a trigger so that over time, you're rewiring yourself to think differently, which will eventually show up. And that is a habit. So sometimes we think habits are like morning routines and be the 5 a.m. club and do all of this and all of that. And sometimes that can feel really unrealistic. Like I know I was doing 5 a.m. 2 years ago, but I don't do that now. And I actually said to somebody this morning on the beach, I'm a morning person. I love to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning. That's how I love my mornings. I'm not going to say I'm a morning person and I'm not doing it now because I'm not up at 5. I'm like, no, I'm a morning person, but here's what my morning looks like. And this is what I love. So I think that's a big thing. It's like how we talk about our daily practices and build those routines and habits. And so I think I would offer that to anybody that's struggling with that particular piece of building new habits. Don't make it unrealistic and it's really big and you've got to shift your whole world around. Like if you're a mom and you're like me and Angie and you're like dropping kids off at school and you've got to get to work and all of this stuff and you're like, how do I get to the gym and how do I build this habit? And don't make it a huge habit. Like how do you walk, how do you park further and walk a few more steps? Like That could be a habit. I just park further away from the store so that I walk farther in the parking lot. I know people that actually do that. I know
Yeah.
people that park further away, and that's a habit that they formed. And that's a very simple one, but it doesn't have to be so big. And I think about some thoughts that are maybe derailing you, and add in some practices in your day when you're drinking a glass of water to actually think those positive thoughts as a habit, and then reframe your brain.
That's so good. I'll offer one quick tip before we go for the gym. When I said that I decided to make my goal based on the action, I said I was going to go to the gym. I would go every single day that I'm scheduled. I'm scheduled 4 times a week at 11 o'clock. That was the end of it. It wasn't be there and work out for 2 hours. It wasn't how much I was going to lift or how far I was going to run or bicycle. I took all of those crazy things off of my goal and just said, what is the minimum I can do? I can go to the gym. As long as I make it to the gym, whatever I do is fine. It's okay. And I gave myself that grace and that mercy to just say, whatever if you're there, if you get on the bike for 5 minutes, which I've never done because I love the gym. It was just getting there, right?
Building that habit.
Think about that as you're building the habit. Now, as you establish the habit, you can start attaching more things to it. It's like lifting weights, right? You can lift more, but just to start with something super simple, like April said, it will make all the difference.
Wow, this was such a great conversation. So thank you so much, Angie, for jumping on today. This is super cool. I can't wait for part 2.
And maybe part 3.
We'll have to see. So yeah, this wraps up our first episode of Incurable Positivity for 2025. You can find us at incurablepositivity.com. It's probably going to be in the outro. And you can also grab a copy of the book and the workbook and journal on Amazon.com or audiobooks, anywhere you find audiobooks that you listen to. It's there to support your journey. I would say this is probably the best time to pick this up because 70% of people drop off. Don't be that 70%, right? Get your habits and all of the things we talked about today, work on it. And that book and that workbook, not because we wrote it, but I just think everybody we know that's actually done it always raves about how great that it's helped them. Like literally, I was at a conference in New York and a senior leader in front of a whole room on a panel, literally, she was asked a question, what book have you read or what podcast have you listened to that changed your life? And she said Incurable Positivity. So yeah, it was so good. So it's good to hear that. So, definitely, I mean, Angie, you're going to let them know where they can contact us or, get in touch.
Absolutely. As April said, the book is available everywhere in audiobook, ebook, and print copy, wherever you get your books. You can also connect with April at aprilsobral.com or better yet at incurablepositivity.com, right?
Yeah.
You can contact us there and join the community. There is no charge to be a part of the community. We just want to give to you there, and you can connect with other people, and there's just so much on that site that's available to you. So I would certainly recommend it. And if you'd like to join our book club, we are meeting on Meetup. So if you jump on Meetup and type in Incurable Positivity, there is only one Meetup called Incurable Positivity or anything close to it. So we encourage you to, if you want to join the conversation and chat with us live, you can meet us there.
Amazing. All right. Well,
if you loved this episode, be sure to hit that subscribe button, leave us a review, and head over to incurablepositivity.com, where you can get access to lots more resources, the community, and myself and Angie, where we go live with book club and talk about everything positivity. We love you. We appreciate all of you. And until next time, stay positive.